I've had these two cameras, the FX6 and the FX3, for about 6 months now. If you've looked into these in the past, you'll know that there is a significant price jump from the FX3 to the FX6. And there are certainly some very exciting features on this camera, such as the SDI out, the BNC timecode, and the internal variable ND, to name a few. However, the FX6 is certainly not superior to the FX3 in every category. And in this video, you're gonna find out 5 benefits of the FX3 versus the FX6. Benefit 1, photography. Now look, I know that the FX3 is by no means a photographer's first pick of a camera. It doesn't have an EVF, and it's a relatively low megapixel count as far as photography is concerned. All of that being said, it still does shoot photos, and it does so in JPEG, it does so in HEIF, and in Sony RAW. So if you do need a quick pick, this will get the job done pretty well. In fact, this is my go-to camera when shooting all of my YouTube thumbnails. The FX6 on the other hand has no still shots feature whatsoever. You would have to get screen grabs from the video clips, which is just not ideal. Reason number 2, 120 frames per second. With the FX6, you can shoot 120 FPS, but you can only do it in S&Q mode, which means you can't record audio simultaneously. In my opinion, this is a major downfall of this camera. The Sony FX6, on the other hand, can record 120 FPS both natively as well as in S&Q mode. The benefit of S&Q mode is that it records in slow mode directly into camera, and so you can sort of see it in slow-mo in camera and make sure that your shot is the way you'd like it. That's great, I have nothing against that, but the fact that this camera cannot also record 120 FPS natively so that you can get audio for synchronization purposes is definitely a downfall. On top of that, I can use my UHS Type 2 SD cards on the FX3 for pretty much any recording mode, including 120 FPS. On the FX6, on the other hand, using the exact same UHS Type 2 SD card, I can only get a few seconds worth of 120 FPS. And I also get a warning saying not guaranteed media. The MXF container that the FX6 records to is much more data hungry, and so a CF Express card is required in order to properly record in these high-speed frame rates. Which brings us to the next reason that the FX3 rocks: file size. Now I'm sure there's an argument to be made that the color information out of the FX6 is superior, but honestly, I'm not a colorist, and as far as I can tell, the UHD 422 10-bit out of the FX3 is fantastic. In fact, I can color match these near perfectly, and I'd have a hard time telling which is which. As with most things in life, the law of diminishing returns strikes again. Just to give you guys an idea on the file sizes, if I'm shooting UHD 23.976 on both of these cameras at the highest possible codec, this is the amount of time you can expect to shoot on the FX3. This is the amount of time you can shoot on the FX6. Now, if we do the exact same thing, UHD, but now we do 5994, this is the amount of time you can expect to shoot on the FX3, and this is the amount of time you can expect to shoot on the FX6. I do want to point out that certain people do say that the MXF container is easier on NLEs, but honestly, I don't have that experience. I would say that my 2017 MacBook Pro prefers the MP4 codec, on DaVinci at least, and my M1 Mac Mini doesn't really seem to care either way. They both perform the same. Reason number 4, form factor. Now this one is pretty straightforward. The FX3 is smaller, it's easier to mount onto a gimbal, and it's easier for run and gun shoots. And you still get, I would say, pretty much 90% of what you can do with the FX6. Now look, you can put the FX6 onto a gimbal. I've succeeded in mounting it onto our Ronin RS3 Pro, but it is difficult because, let me show you, the lens is a little bit lifted towards the top, which makes the center of gravity really wonky. So in order to do so, you have to do away with the side grip, you have to remove the top grip, and then you sort of have to awkwardly mount the screen onto the gimbal or however you can. And honestly, no one would willingly rig the FX6 up this way, so it's never ready to go on a gimbal. Whereas the FX3, you know, the only cameras we use on gimbals are the FX3 and the FX30s. So everything is pretty much ready to go. All we do is slide it in and Bob's your uncle. Bob is actually very much not my uncle. My uncle's name is Juan Antonio, but you know, more on that's not relevant to the video. Speaking of getting things done quickly, the last major benefit of the FX3 versus the FX6 is its speed. Now here's the thing, anything that is quickly accessible on the side panel on the FX6 is going to be relatively quick. But if you do want to change frame rates or resolutions, you're gonna have to go into the menu, change it the same way you would with the FX3, But this camera needs to restart every single time. And it's not slow, but it's not quick, it just adds a little bit more time. Not a major drawback, but it is something to consider. A little something that takes time when you're on set and you sort of just want to switch between 120 FPS and 24, for example. The FX6 is going to take a little bit more time. Now, all of this to say that if you are the type of person who wants an all-in-one solution that can do the photography, slow-mo, gimbal work, and it won't really increase your monthly hard drive expense twofold, then the FX3 is, for sure, the better of these two cameras. Now, what I find interesting in these comparisons is just because one is more expensive than the other doesn't necessarily mean it performs better in every category. It still very much depends on what it is that you want to do with it. Anyways, that's it for me, guys. I hope this video was helpful. The YouTube algorithm seems to think that this video might interest you. If you made it this far into the video, a like and subscribe would mean the world to me. And if you do subscribe, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.